So I've just got back from my third gravel race of the year, and I thought I'd talk you through what I'm liking about my current gravel racing setup and what I'm going to change. So this is my Canyon Grizl. It's the CFSL7 model, I think it was. I've had it 2 years now. In a nutshell, I love the bike, but I have made quite a few changes since owning it. As my discipline has changed, I started off just going for casual gravel rides, a little bit of adventuring, and now I'm dabbling in gravel racing. So the needs have changed, but the bike still meets those needs. I actually think that this bike is better for racing, particularly in the UK, than the Canyon Grizl. Now, Canyon market this Grizl as like the adventure bike, not the race bike at all, and the market the Grizl as the race bike. I'll come on to my reasons why in a little while, but I essentially think this is the best choice if you're looking for an all-round gravel training race bike in the UK. So let's start with the frame-related things. I run 2 bottle cages on the bike. I can put a third under the bottom bracket, and I can put some on the forks if needed. My gravel races tend to be between 4 and 5 hours long, so a couple of bottles on the frame and a camelback bladder is enough to get me through them. I did do a particularly hot race yesterday, and I did need to stop and refill a bottle. I only took one with me, lesson learned, but yeah, that's enough to carry sort of 4 litres of fluid. The other frame set related thing that I've been flitting between is having bags on the bike, so a frame bag and a top tube bag. Being a triathlete, I do love a top tube storage bag, and I started off by using a frame bag and using a top tube storage bag, and when you've got that storage space, you soon fill it up. I think I've become more and more minimalist with my gravel racing setup. There are some events where you have to take like a list of mandatory kit, and when that happens, I'll put a frame bag on, so emergency blanket, waterproof coat, all those sorts of things. But for the sort of bare, you're doing a race for 4 or 5 hours, you don't need any of that stuff. So I'm trying to be a bit more minimalist, save a bit of weight on the bike and not have that. I'm mostly fueling on gels and fluid, to be honest, so I don't need to have bags on the bike. So that's something I've taken off after having initially put them on. The group set is the same spec as it was out of the box. I have had to change quite a few things because of consumables over the last couple of years, as you can imagine, but the 40-tooth crank and the 1044 rear cassette SRAM Rival AXS Explorer is exactly as it came from the factory. Occasionally I've been spinning out top gear, but where that has happened, I think it's been the best choice for me at the time. If I had another gear, I'd just be spending energy unnecessarily. If I'm doing 26, 27 miles an hour, I don't need to be going any faster. That is fine. And the first gear, the lowest range, is enough for me to get me up the steepest pitches. If anything is steeper than that, I'll be walking anyway. So I find it a good enough range. I'm sort of tempted by the new 13 speed, but I think I'd wait until I break something on here to be able to swap that. I do partner with NRG chains, so I have a wax chain on for events and ceramic bearing jockey wheels. The wax chain, I think, is the biggest advantage off-road. It picks up way less muck and of course runs quieter and faster. The ceramic bearing jockey wheels, probably more of a marginal gain. It more does look cool than anything else, but yeah, why not? The shifters, I have noticed, have got quite stiff over the last few months. Now, I do ride this bike through the winter and train on it in poor conditions. Obviously, I live in the UK, and I think it's probably just one of those reasons that when I'm shifting up and down gears, the buttons are just take more force to change gear, and that might not sound like a big problem, but when you're in an event and you're doing lots of shifting, it adds up. I find that my hands and wrists are getting tired, as well as having to hang on to the bike for obvious reasons. So yeah, something to bear in mind. Brakes are still the same, standard 160 rotors, but I have changed the brake pads. I've gone through a fair few pairs of them over the last couple of years, which is to be expected, but I have just gone to the Swiss side pads. They are yellow. I don't know what the spec of them are, but they were sold as the road and gravel brake pads. I find them to be okay. They brake well, but I can't say that I noticed them braking any better than the standard pads. And when they get hot, so long descents, steep descents, braking hard, they make a lot of noise. It's almost like a squeal. They still work. It's not like they've gone hot and gone off. They still work, but it's just really loud, which the standard pads didn't do. So something for me to perhaps keep an eye on. Pedal system, I'm using the Xpedo M8 titanium pedals with the Favero Asioma spindles. That is a hack or a bodge, whatever you want to call it. They're not like that from factory. Power still reads fine, and the spindles are the right size to go into the pedals, so it is an accredited hack, but yeah, not a factory option. I think based on the racing I've been doing, I'd actually run road pedals if I had the choice now, and road shoes. Gravel shoes are the ones I've got are easier to clean, so one benefit, but I think I have had a bit of sore feet sometimes on the long events, and I think it is due to the pedals being smaller power platform, and maybe my shoes aren't as high spec off-road as they are on-road. So something I perhaps look to change, but I'm not going to go out there and buy some road pedals, especially for this bike, and I do like it being ready to go. I don't have to swap pedals around between bikes. The cockpit, I have some richly aluminium flared bars. I think they're 38 of the hoods and 42 or 44 of the drops. They're okay, they're fine. I like the feel of them. The drops are a little bit strangely shaped, but I do find it's good to have a couple of options on the drops. And I'm not really spending much time there. Some descent, sure, but I'm finding because they're flared, I'm flicking my elbows out. If I was starting again, I might actually just put road bars on this, to be honest, because I ride road most of the time, so I'm really used to the position. I don't think having a flared bar really gives you much of an advantage bike handling wise, but they're on there now. I'm not going to change them. I am going to change the bar tape, however, though, as you can tell, it's quite worn. I find that I move around the bars quite a lot when I'm riding. I don't wear gloves pretty much ever unless it's cold, so therefore I don't grip the bars. My hands move around quite a lot, so whether it's just my hands rubbing, well, obviously it is my hands just rubbing away the bar tape, but what I am going to do is I've bought 2 rolls of bar tape. I'm going to double bar tape it and see if that adds a bit of comfort to the bumpy ride. Speaking of bumpy ride, the seat post and saddle is as it comes from the factory. It's the Physique something gravel, and I actually really get on with that saddle. I've got another one as well I use on another bike, completely fluke, you know, from factory. It's not very often the factory saddle fits you, but it fits me, so I'm going to stick with it. And I love the split seat post, the VCLS sort of ergon, you know, moving around seat post, particularly off-road. That really does add some comfort, and comfort off-road to me just means you can pedal more, whereas if you're on a stiffer setup and you're bumping around, you'll probably just free wheel. If you're comfy, you'll just keep pedaling, and perhaps that adds to your performance. Wheels and tires then, and this is the main reason why I actually think this bike is better for gravel riding and gravel racing than the Grizl. That's because you can get decent sized tires in it. Now, I'm a bigger guy, I'm bigger than normal cyclists. I'm 100 kilos, I'm 6'2", so I'm going to run wider tires than your standard 60 kilo rider, and I think that makes sense. Now, I do partner with Veta wheels, and these are their currently unreleased. I'm going to try and call them the TriathlonDan edition because they're super wide. So they're carbon, they're hooked, which I'm really keen to keep. 32mm internal and 42mm external width, so quite wide, and I think the gravel fashion is going to go that way and has already started going that way. But this is not a fashion choice, this is just a practicality choice. When I put these tyres on my Zip 303 S's, they did bulge out quite a lot on the sidewall, and perhaps that didn't matter much, but I do think when you look at the tyre and the sidewall sticking out, like if you're going to come across rocks, and in the Peak District where I live there's quite a lot of rocks, I just thought, well, it's at more of a risk of sidewall puncture, surely. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but with these wheels on, it's more of a straight sidewall, and I can't say that I feel any faster or like it's rolling any differently. I tend to run quite low pressures anyway, sort of 18, 19 PSI, and it feels pretty much the same, but I think it does look better. It doesn't mean there's no difference there, I just don't think you can feel it. But I really enjoy riding these big tyres because I can keep on the pedals on rougher sections, and I do think, you know, being a heavier rider, when I'm descending, like at this race yesterday, on one descent I hit a big hole and I felt the tyre bottom out on the wheel. Nothing broke because I've got all that squish, all that space to be able to absorb that impact, whereas if I had 40mm tyres running high pressure, it's just not the same, is it? So I really like these for training and for racing. I would, if I was going to go back to the Gralock next year, put something a bit more rugged on for that particular gravel, but everything else I've done, these have been absolutely fine. Not the best in the wet, but also I haven't done a gravel race in the wet this year yet either, and if it was wet and gravelly, I'd probably still just keep these on. If it was wet and muddy, then I would look for something chunkier, but then you start coming across the limits of the frame. So these are 2.1s. I've seen some people squeeze 2.2s on, but I don't know about 2.2s in the mud, and it's just a problem I'll come across in future me. One thing I'm going to change is the saddlebag. I know just looking at it now, it looks like I'm going on a bike touring. Now, it is good because I can fit loads of stuff in it, but then I think you do just pack accordingly and perhaps overpack. I've actually had to stuff a microfiber cloth in there to stop things jingling around, and my little electric pump yesterday at this race jolted around and the on button pressed and it just went on for like 5 minutes in my bag. I couldn't find the button to turn it off, and of course then I've got no charge in it. I still carry CO2 and a plug and all that sort of stuff as well, but I think I could fit all of that in a smaller saddlebag. I tend to keep this on for when I go out training. I'll put a tube in as well, and you know, loads of spares. For racing, not quite as needed, so I'm going to put a smaller saddlebag on. Maybe it's a small aerodynamic advantage, maybe it saves a little bit of weight, but I think it just looks a bit ridiculous at the minute with it being such like a big bag on what is otherwise what I think a fairly well dialed gravel race setup. That tape on the fork isn't there for any reason other than just to put a timing chip number on without scratching my paint, because I'm all about not scratching the paint when the whole rest of the bike is really chipped up. Anyway, that's my setup. I need to go and get it washed. Let me know your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section down below.